Hello class, this is Mr. Parsons. I just want to take a few minutes to talk to you about solving multi-step equations and equations with variable on each side. We know that a multi-step equation is an equation that uses multiple steps in order to isolate your variable. And so you want to think about the process of doing a multi-step equation. And we're going to talk about that process in just a moment. But you use the process of what you call inverse or opposite operations in order to isolate your variable. That's the goal, to get the variable on one side of the equal sign by itself. So let's take a look here. We want to use our properties of equality to isolate our variables so we can solve each equation. So we got 2a minus 6 equals 4, and n plus 1 in parentheses divided by negative 2 equals 15. Let's break this down. So let's look at the first one. The first thing you want to do is you want to move your constant negative 6 to the other side by doing an inverse operation. So we got to add. That's the addition property of equality. And so we add 6 on both sides. We get 2a equals 10. Now to get a by itself, we need to move 2 to the other side. We have to do the inverse operation, which is division. And so by doing division, we're doing the division property of equality. And so we divide both sides by 2. Then we get 5 as our value for a. We can always double check by substituting 5 back into the original equation. And if 2 times 5 minus 6 equals 4, then the answer is true. All right, the answer is correct. Let's look at part B. N plus 1 in parentheses divided by negative 2 equals 15. What we need to do first is we need to move this denominator, negative 2. Think of it as a constant, okay? You want to move this negative 2 to the other side by doing the inverse operation, which is multiplication, because anytime you see a fraction, that's division. So we multiply on both sides. That is your multiplication property of equality. All right, and so when we do that, we do negative 2 times 15. That's going to give you negative 30. So n plus 1 equals negative 30. It's going to be what we have after we multiply. Now we need to move 1 to the other side so we can have n by itself. So we need to do the inverse operation, subtract. And that is called the subtraction property of equality. And so when you do negative 30 minus 1, you get negative 31. And so negative 31 will be our solution. All right, let's try to see here. Pause the video and see if you can solve these two problems for me. Okay, let's take a look here. So for this one, what we should have had is you should have had negative 5. All right, you have to subtract 4 on both sides. That gives you 3m equals negative 15. And then negative 15 divided by 3 gives you negative 5. And then for the second problem, you should have got 61. All right. So then you got to multiply both sides by 7. And so 8 times 7 is 56. And then you want to add 5 on both sides. 56 and 5 gives you 61. All right. There's a process in regards of solving our equations. The first thing you want to make sure you're able to do is identify parts of your equation. Any number in front of your variable is your letter that represents an unknown value. Any number in front of your letter is called the coefficient. All right, that represents multiplication. It's always going to represent multiplication. And then the number that's on the same side as your variable that's not associated with the variable, that is your constant. Okay, and so when we solve our equations, we want to isolate our variable by doing inverse operations, as I stated before. The process in regards to solving multi-step equations, you always want to do the distributive property first. All right. Then you want to combine like terms. And then when you do that, generally you have a two-step equation. Then you want to move your constant to the other side by either adding or subtracting. And then you want to move your coefficient to the other side by either multiplying or dividing. And you can always double check by substituting the value that you get into the original equation. If the equation is true, you got the answer correct. All right, so let's take a look here. So if we look at this problem here, there's no distributive property, so we don't have to worry about that. However, there are like terms. Our like terms is 8x and 16x and negative 14 and 5. And so 8x and 16x, that's 24x. Negative 14 and 5 gives you 9. 24x minus 9 equals 39. Now we got a two-step equation. We want to add 9 on both sides. 39 and 9 gives you 48. And now you want to get rid of 24 by dividing both sides by 24. And so 48 divided by 24 gives you 2. So 2 would be the solution here. For this one, we do have the distributive property. Okay, we got negative 3 on the outside and 12x plus 9 on the inside of parentheses. Anytime you have distributive property, you have to take the number outside of the parentheses and multiply it by each term inside the parentheses. So what we're doing here is doing negative 3 times 12x and negative 3 times 9. All right, when we do that, we're going to get negative 36x minus 27 equals 99. Now we have a two-step equation. We want to add 27 on both sides. So 99 and 27 is 126. And then you want to divide both sides by 36 because that's your inverse operation. So 126 divided by negative 36 is going to give you negative 3.5. All right. Looking at this problem here, this is distributive property. Notice there's no number there. However, look at that as an invisible one. Anytime we don't see a number in front of a variable, or we just see a negative sign with no number, it's an invisible one. So look at this as saying negative 1. So this is saying negative 1 times 2x plus 5 plus 14 equals 22. So the first step, hey, let's go ahead and do the distributive property. So we're going to do negative 1 times 2x, negative 1 times 5. So negative 1 times 2x is negative 2x, negative 1 times 5 is negative 5, plus 14 equals 22. Now that we did the distributive property, the next step is to combine like terms. Our like terms is negative 5 and 14. We add those two together, we're going to get 9. So we got negative 2x plus 9 equals 22. Now we got a two-step equation. Subtract 9 on both sides. 22 minus 9 is 13. And then divide both sides by negative 2. That's going to give you negative 6.5. All right, this last problem here, we want to do our distributive property first. So we're going to do 3.4 times x. It's going to be 3.4x. 3.4 times 7 is 23.8. And then bring down to minus 2.1x minus 35.5. All right. Now that we did distributive property, we want to combine like terms. The like terms is 3.4x and negative 2.1x because they have the same variable. Now let's combine it. 3.4 minus 2.1, that gives you 1.3. So we got 1.3x plus 23.8 equals 35.5. Now we have a two-step equation. Subtract 23.8 on both sides. That gives you 1.3x equals 11.7. And then divide both sides by 1.3. And then 9 will be our solution. Okay. Variables on both sides. So sometimes you're going to have variables on both sides of the equation. We still want to go through the process of, going through our steps. But what we need to do first, though, is to get the variable on one side of the equal sign. So let's look at some examples with that. We'll go walk through that. So we got 5 plus 7a equals 4a minus 13. All right. So notice we got 7a on the left side of the equal sign, 4a on the right side of the equal sign. So let's do that. Generally, what they teach you is anytime you got variables on both sides of the equal sign, you want to take the smaller coefficient, bring it over to the side of the larger coefficient. All right. So we're going to take, since 4 is smaller than 7, we're going to bring 4 over to the left. Technically, it doesn't matter, but since they teach that way, that's what I'm going to show you. So negative 4, because that's the inverse operation. All right. So 7 minus 4 is 3. So you leave you with 5 plus 3a equals negative 13. Now we got a two-step equation. We got a variable on one side of the equal sign. All right. Now we want to go ahead and move our constant 5 on the other side by subtracting 5. And so negative 13 minus 5 gives you negative 18. So 3a equals negative 18. Divide both sides by 3, and a equals negative 6. You can always check it by substituting the original equation. If the equation is true, then you got the answer right. All right, let's take a look at this. So notice we got 11x minus 8 equals negative 7x plus 64. All right, we got 11x on the left, negative 7x on the right. Hey, 7 is less than 11. So we'll bring 7x over to the left side of the equal sign. So we're going to do the inverse operation. We're going to add. So 11x and 7x is 18x. So 18x minus 8 equals 64. We got a two-step equation. Add 8 on both sides. You got 18x equals 72. Divide both sides by 18, and you get 4. So 4 will be our solution here. All right. Take a look at this one. All right. 58 minus 8x equals 30x minus 75. 8 is less than 30, so we're going to bring 8x over to the right. We're going to do the inverse operation, add. So we're going to get 58 equals 38x minus 75. Now we got a two-step equation here. Add 75 on both sides. you get 133 equals 38x, and then divide both sides by 38, you get 3.5. All right. Now, using the distributive property, and I already mentioned this, but basically you're taking it's a number outside the parentheses, multiplying by each number inside of your parentheses. So let's take a look at an example here. We got 7 times n minus 1 in parentheses equals -2 times 3 plus n parentheses on the right side. So what you want to do is take the number outside of the parentheses, multiply by each term. So we're going to do 7 times n and 7 times -1. And on the right side, you're going to do -2 times 3 and -2 times n. So it's going to leave you with 7n minus 7 equals -6 minus 2n. Now you have variables on both sides of the equal sign. So what you want to do now is bring one of the variables over to the other side of the equal sign. So since 2 is less than 7, we'll bring 2 over to the left. We'll do the inverse operation by adding 2 on both sides. And so we combine 7 and 2, that gives you 9n. So 9n minus 7 equals -6, two-step equation. Add 7 on both sides, you get 1. And then divide both sides by 9, you get 1/9. So 1/9 will be our solution. All right, let's look at this. The fact that this is -1, all right? So this is saying -8 plus 2n equals, and then we're doing -2 times 12 minus 3n. So we'll give you -24 plus 6n. Now that we did distributive property, we need to combine like terms before we're able to do anything else. So if you look on the right side, look at your like terms. It's 8 and -24. So we do 8 and -24, you get -16. All right? So this is how our equation looks. We want to bring the variable to one side of the equal sign. Hey, 2 is less than 6. So we'll subtract 2n on both sides. It's going to leave you with -8 equals -16 plus 4n. Now we got a two-step equation. Add 16 on both sides. That leaves you with 8 equals 4n. Divide both sides by 4, and 2 will be our solution. All right, look at this one. All right, we got the distributive property on both sides. We're going to do 5 times k and 5 times 14. That's going to leave you with 5k plus 70. On the right side, we're going to do 1/5 times 20k. That's 4k, because 1/5 times 20 is 20k over 5, and 20 divided by 5 is 4. That's how you get that. And then 1/5 times -80, that gives you -16. You got variables on both sides. Hey, 4 is less than 5, so we'll bring 4 over to the left. We're going to subtract. 5 minus 4 leaves you with 1k, or just k. So k plus 70 equals -16. Move 70 to the other side by subtract. -16 minus 70 gives you -86. All right. And so that's the process that we were doing as far as using distributive property. And we got a similar example here. What you want to do is 7 times n. That's going to give you 7n. 7 times -2, that's -14. And then that's going to 7n minus 14 plus 8 equals 3n minus 12 minus 2. All right. And then you want to combine your like terms. And then you want to go ahead and do your process of adding or subtracting or multiplying and dividing. And you're going to get -2 as your answer. Learning the identities. One solution, no solution, or many solutions. When you're trying to solve your equations, if you find out that you cancel out your variables, all right, there's a special case. It's one solution, no solution. Identity. Identity means infinitely many solutions. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. If we solve this, notice what happens. All right, we do our distributive property. This is what we get. When we try to bring our variable to one side of the equal sign, look what happens. The variables cancel out, leaving you with -30 on one side of the equal sign and 20 on the other side. If your variables cancel out and the numbers are not the same, it is no solution. When you solve your equation and your variables cancel out and it's the same, then it's identity, or also known as infinitely many solutions. And of course, if they have different coefficients, it's going to be one solution, and you can go ahead and actually solve for that particular equation. So I know it's a lot, and I apologize about that, but hopefully this helps with our understanding in regards of solving our multi-step equations and equations with variables on both sides.